Great Depression, during the 1942 bombings off the Outer Banks of North Carolina, the Deacon family has lost the life they knew before the Second World War. As the family and their closest friends struggle to make sense of the secrets they keep from one another, their dogs, Big Love and Warhorse, help them find the strength and endurance to survive the aftermath of devastating loss and adversity. Abandoned by their father Luke after the sudden death of their mother, 15-year-old Jonas and his younger sister Kay are coming of age in a world shrouded in secrecy and uncertainty. Luke's sister Linny steps in to help mend the broken family, but haunted by her own hidden truths, her life is shattered by the past. Through the intimate perspectives of the Deacon family and their dogs, this intricately woven tale of tragedy and love reminds us of the power of the human spirit to rise above seemingly impossible circumstances.
Hello, book clubbers. Today's book is Big Love and a Warhorse. And we're going to have a little interview with the writer, Shalene. Hi, Shalene.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm so excited about it. And I want to tell the viewer right now that after you're going to watch the interview, go in the below in the description and go in the link to Amazon and read a sample, because after you're going to read a sample, you want to read the book as well. So, Charlene, what was your inspiration for this book?
So there were actually two different inspirations for the book, and they came together, and the story kind of weaved itself and formed itself. The first was that I was working on a novel inspired by my grandmother. She actually took her own life when I was very young, and I wanted to write a story of her and her life and the effects that suicide actually has on the loved ones around that person. But at the same time, I also was wanting to write a story about my dogs. And they kind of just came into the story. The two stories merged because no one seems to know you as well as your pets do. They're always around in your most intimate moments. And that's actually something that I thought about with my grandmother. She actually had a cat, but I always wondered, what did that pet see and know that we as our family members missed, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was inspired by both my grandmother and my dogs. And then my mom had told me a lot of family stories before she passed away, and those are also weaved into the novel. So
yeah, that's interesting what you're saying, because the way I like how the book is written on a way of the perception of the dogs is so unique. It's I have never read the book. There's probably are books out there like that, but I have not read the book from adult point, like adult book that
yeah.
has that, and so emotionally as well. Yeah.
But
So, but I also know that you did a lot of research for this book, because it's not happening in today's world. It happens in what years?
1942, and that actually, the research, just as the stories that my mom told me, the research that went into this book it spanned a period of about 7 years. And that research also helped just the story take on a life of its own. And it just seemed one thing led to another. And it really made the book come alive. So, for example, when I first started my research, I actually was researching suicide and statistics. And I found that during World War II, that was the height of suicide for women, which then led me to the devil dogs, the Marine war dogs at Camp Lejeune, which were also being bred and trained during that time, which then put my story into North Carolina, which coincidentally I had just found a box of letters from my grandmother that were written about North Carolina during that time.
Mhm.
That led to the bombings of the Outer Banks and the rich history. So, over the period of 7 years, I researched the U boats and the just the history of the dogs and the people and all of the nuances that occurred during that time. And I even watched hours and hours of footage of from the mountains to the sea so that I knew that I had the landscaping correct, and I wanted to know what it looked like and what it smelled like, and um, I wanted to be able to place myself where my characters were. But yes, it was a lot of research, and I think if I would have put all of the dates and research into the novel, it probably would have been twice as long. But my
Yeah,
novel is very short. I tried to keep it as real as possible. So,
it does actually feel like you're in the when you're reading, like you're actually in that times as well.
so
So
good.
inside the time.
That's what I
So
hope for.
you've heard some feedback from it as well for now, and I'll say my feedback already from the sample was so emotional.
It is. It is a very emotional story. I've had pretty great feedback so far. I mean, book reviews are subjective, just like movies or anything else. It's some people like some things and others don't. Uh, but I think the biggest thing is that the book is very, very emotional. It covers a lot of themes in a very short amount of time. Uh, so I think that that can be difficult for a lot of people. But there's also the novel is also very lighthearted, and the dogs bring in that sense of humor, and they do lighten up the story. But emotionally, when it comes to the characters, I really try to become my characters when I write. And with a lot of the stories weaved in the book, they are family histories.
Mhm.
So there was a huge emotional connection for me to these characters, and I think that comes out in the writing. Um, but it did win the Literary Titan Gold Book Award, which is a monthly award, so that was pretty exciting. But again, yes, it is a very emotional book, and most of my reviews do talk about the themes and the treatment of women and family survival and redemption, and uh, the pervasive prejudice that occurred during that time. And it is a story of coming of age during tumultuous times. So I think that not only was it representative of 1942, but it's very representative of today also. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to tell us a little, like just a quick story of that you told me about, like what happened with you and your husband when you were writing a book.
Yes, like I said, I really try to become my characters when I write. And so sometimes during the writing of this novel, Kevin would come in and I would just be bawling, just crying, and Kevin would be like, "Baby, what's wrong?" And I'd be like, "Nothing. I'm Linny right now. I'm Aunt Linny." Like, um, but yeah, so there were a lot of times that Kevin would check on me because he was concerned that I was upset about something, but in actuality, I was just pouring my emotions out into my characters in my novel during the writing process. So,
Hmm. Yeah, and for the viewers, again, go and to begin with, if you're not decided yet to buy it, go in Amazon link and read a sample, because when I was reading a sample, I was already so emotionally involved. And I was like, okay, I want to find out what's going to happen. And you're going to read a sample and you're just going to want to know what happens. The sample part by itself is already like a story by itself. So, but before we're going to end, Charlene, I want to talk about your next book as well.
that's it. I am very excited about our next book. I will say our next book. My husband and I are actually going to co-author the next book, and it's called The Summer Beard. It is literary fiction, just like Big Love and Warhorse. However, it is a comedy, this time. And I promise you will laugh as hard as you did when you cried in the book Big Love and War Horse. The story is about a family and their life unraveling, and it is dramatic. Their life is dramatically changing, and it's all based on just these misunderstandings. And so you have this evolution of a regular family as they are actually becoming preppers because they think the end of the world is coming. And it is one of the funniest. My husband and I, we laugh just as much as I cried when I was becoming the characters for Big Love and War Wars. We laugh so hard as we are writing this novel, The Summer Beard. So hopefully that will be out in 2025. So
Hmm. I'm excited about that as well. As much as this was emotional in one way, I'm excited to like. I can imagine laughing at that story by itself already sounds so interesting.
oh,
So
good.
thank you, Shalene, so much about telling about your book and the story behind it. And for the viewers, go in description. You're gonna find all the information about it. And there it is, Big Love and the War Horse. Thank you. Enjoy the book and have a good day.
So thank you, Piret.